Hello, my name is Trudy and I have dissociative seizures as well as epilepsy. There are many names for what are now generally known as dissociative seizures, and some of the terms are considered to be offensive. It's preferable to not use terms that include the word epileptic or words that imply they are not real, so the preferred name for them now is dissociative seizures. Dissociative seizures are attacks that look similar to epilepsy but are not caused by abnormal brain activity. Instead, they happen through a psychological process of dissociation. Unless you really know me, you probably wouldn't realise I was having many of my dissociative seizures, as they are often subtle and not visible to others. But they are real and for us an inconvenience and frightening. In many ways, I'm fortunate in that I don't usually have dissociative seizures that mimic my tonic-clonic seizures, or grand mal as they used to be called. Instead, they mimic my absence and partial seizures. My seizures are frightening and made worse when people don't understand or believe me, as I then begin to doubt myself and the anxiety creeps in, which exacerbates the seizures. Dissociation is an altered state of awareness, a kind of switching off, which happens unconsciously. We all dissociate, or we'd be constantly bombarded with too many sights, sounds and sensations and not able to focus on what we are doing. An example of this is when we're reading a book and the doorbell goes. We don't hear it because we're too busy reading our book. But in those of us with dissociative seizures, it is outside of our control and occurs as a coping mechanism in situations we find difficult or when we're stressed. It can, however, also occur when we're relaxed. My dissociative seizures often occurred when I was doing something I enjoyed. I found this particularly difficult, and gradually I withdrew and became more and more unsure of myself, so exacerbating the seizures and allowing my OCD to creep in. Approximately 1 in 5 initially diagnosed as having epilepsy actually have dissociative seizures. Approximately 30,000 people in the UK have dissociative seizures, and that's about the same number as the population of Sevenoaks in Kent. There is no single cause for dissociative seizures. Often they are the result of having had a traumatic experience as a child, though this isn't always the case. Mine, I believe, were caused by the way I was treated over the years by the medical profession and by my family. I was distressed by the way I was treated, and I now realise this was my way of coping with that distress and pain. But sometimes it's not possible to pinpoint a cause. And to further complicate the issue, people with dissociative seizures can also have epilepsy. When we have dissociative seizures, we can get caught in a vicious circle. We have a seizure and this causes us considerable distress and makes us anxious. We don't like the way they make us feel, as they frighten us, and so we go on the alert, anticipating more seizures, which in turn increases our anxiety. This actually makes us more vulnerable to the seizures and we end up having more of them. Once caught up in this circle, it's not easy to break it, especially as we're unaware we're doing it most of the time. It took me a long time to work this one out, but now I'm better equipped to break the circle and so minimise or even stop many of my seizures. More importantly, the seizures I still have don't cause as much anxiety as they used to. No, they definitely are not deliberate. Our seizures are real and not imaginary. They cause us great distress and can have a considerable impact on our lives. We often have to miss out on the things we enjoy because of them. Initially, I thought I was going mad and slowly withdrew from life to protect myself. I didn't understand what was going on and became very frightened and confused, which simply increased the frequency of the seizures. Many find it difficult to accept the diagnosis, especially if they've been initially misdiagnosed as having epilepsy or have both. It's vital that the healthcare professional giving the diagnosis takes the time to sit and explain it fully to ensure we don't feel as if we are going mad or that everyone thinks we're putting it on, because we're neither mad nor faking it. We need to know that we aren't the only ones with this condition, and for healthcare professionals to give us hope that the seizures can be diminished or even stopped. I came to realise that as well as my epilepsy, I was having what were called in those days psychogenic seizures, now called dissociative seizures. And I tried telling one of my neurologists, who then, despite evidence to the contrary, labelled all my seizures as dissociative seizures. I then shut up and wouldn't tell anyone. But it was too late. By then my diagnosis went before me and tainted any further working relationships with the medical profession. When I told my current neurologist that I thought I had both, he nearly fell off his chair, as not many people will admit to having dissociative seizures because of the reaction they get from the medical profession. First and foremost, we need to accept the diagnosis, which can be difficult if we were initially wrongly diagnosed with epilepsy or have both. Some people never acknowledge they have dissociative seizures, and this can be difficult for them and those trying to help them. CBT or cognitive behavioural therapy works in many cases, but it takes time and patience with a skilled and appropriately trained therapist to get results. I personally found that psychodynamic therapy helped me, as it helped me to build up my confidence and self-esteem, but it has taken a considerable amount of time, hard work, effort and patience to get where I am now. With the help of my therapist, I learned a lot about myself and the way I react to certain situations, and I have now found better ways to cope when confronted with these difficult situations. I've also learnt how to recognise some of my triggers. I'm not seizure free, but I'm a lot better than I was, and I'm learning to control my seizures. Finally, I'm starting to live, not simply exist. Dissociative seizures is still a very misunderstood condition. People with dissociative seizures need compassion and understanding, especially if we haven't got to the point where we are able to accept the diagnosis. We need people who will listen to us to understand what we are going through and who won't deny our experiences. I've often been asked a question by a healthcare professional, and whilst I've been answering, I've noticed that they weren't actually listening to me. Instead, they were working out how they were going to reply to me, and often it was to say, that couldn't have happened. It's humiliating and doesn't help our confidence or self-esteem. Help keep us safe during a seizure to prevent injury. Also help us to keep calm, especially whilst we're having a seizure, as this will often reduce the length of the seizure. Telling us to stop simply doesn't work, as it makes the seizures worse. They're not something we do consciously, they happen unconsciously, and we have to learn how to control them and recognise the triggers. It's cruel to tell us it's all in our minds, as it implies we consciously cause the seizures, which isn't true. Forcing anyone to seek help is counterproductive. We need to want to seek help, or treatment won't work. Keep us safe by ensuring we're not in any danger or liable to injure ourselves. And if we are, then gently move us. Don't attempt to hold us down or restrict our movements, as this is liable to not only injure us but prolong the seizure. Keep speaking calmly to us. Just hearing a calm voice can help to reduce the length of the seizure. And you don't need to call an ambulance unless we've injured ourselves or the seizure goes on for a long time. There is a lot of stigma surrounding dissociative seizures, mainly caused by ignorance of the condition. Many healthcare professionals are still ignorant of what dissociative seizures are, and we frequently end up being told we are putting them on, malingering, or attention seeking, which is embarrassing and humiliating. Many with dissociative seizures won't tell others they have them for fear of the reaction they will get. It took me a long time before I came out of the dissociative seizures closet after the initial experiences I had had with the medical profession. The only way to tackle the stigma is to educate not just the public but also healthcare professionals, and by promoting a better understanding of what dissociative seizures really are, we can move forward. People fear what they don't understand and pass their fears on to us. Thank you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me using either the comment boxes on this video or by contacting me via my OCD blog, which is listed in the resource section. I have put together a list of resources that will help you better understand what dissociative seizures are. I have also included my OCD blog because there are posts on it that are specifically about my dissociative seizures. Thank you.